These are thousands of students navigating the most powerful thinking tools in human history without a roadmap.
I was talking to a room full of computer science teachers recently, and I asked them to put up their hand if they thought that ChatGPT had not snuck into any of their assessment responses. There was about 30 teachers in the room. Not a single hand went up.
I got sold on the idea that robots would do the boring stuff, the data entry, the scheduling, the mundane tasks, free me up to do the fun stuff, the creative things. But that's not what's happening. So here's a question that's been keeping me up at night. So what if AI isn't making us smarter? What if it's actually making us dumber? Because we got some absolutely bombshell research this year that changes everything we thought we know about how people, and students especially, are actually using AI. And spoiler, it's not good news. Dale, before we dive into this, what does your gut tell you? What does your gut say about how students are using these tools?
For me, it's the whole leapfrogging bit that's probably concerning me. It's the you need to learn to walk before you run. If I speak about myself, there's certain things that I know and time on this earth that's given me that I'm okay with that, but I've offloaded a whole bunch of things to AI. And if I have to do them again without AI, there's going to be some real thinking involved. I think about on the flip side, I'm actually doing a lot more in a breadth sense. So like vibe coding, game simulation, UX design, but it's coming from that life experience. I was talking to a room full of computer science teachers recently, and I asked them to put up their hand if they thought that ChatGPT had not snuck into any of their assessment responses in like some of those basic coding hello world type of styles. There was about 30 teachers in the room. Not a single hand went up. So it does get me concerned about the kind of the base skills that are being developed here and whether they're really being offloaded to AI first.
2025, this has been the year where we finally have got real data on AI usage, not speculation, not think pieces. We've got actual research from people building these tools and the students, the users using them. Okay. 3 major studies dropped in the first half of this year, and they all point back to the same concerning trend. We're not using AI to enhance our thinking. We are using it to replace thinking entirely. Okay. First up, Anthropic, so the lab behind Claude, they analyzed 4 million real world Claude conversations for, they're calling it the Anthropic Economic Index. The headline: people in the workplace are outsourcing critical thinking tasks rather than just routine work. And speaking for myself, I got sold on the idea that robots would do the boring stuff, the data entry, the scheduling, the mundane tasks, free me up to do the fun stuff, the creative things. But that's not what's happening. And I mean, hand up, I'm fully guilty of that myself, passing over some of these higher order tasks to the machines. But the evidence says loud and clear that it's not isolated cases, that a great deal of people are doing this, right? Dale, this feels backwards though, right? We expect AI to do the grunt work, to clean house effectively, but instead we're handing over the stuff that makes us, us. Where are you on this?
Oh, on paper, yeah, sure. I agree. I think everyone, when you see the video creation and the image creation, you go, oh, I wish I could do that. But I'm going to take a real optimistic view because AI gives the average individual who's really talented in one area access to skills in a whole other area. So I think it was Daniel Coccadillo and Scott Alexander. They were on the Dwykesh podcast. That was around that 2027 AI report that came out, that semi-science fiction report that talked about the Cambrian explosion. And there was a data point they spoke about around the average scientist gets a decent productivity bump from something, their domain knowledge, but something that's outside their domain knowledge, they get a much bigger bump in terms of productivity and how they approach it. Now, I'm sure Dunning-Kruger is playing a big role here, but if you reframe things here from it's doing the things that make us human to we're getting more time and access to tools that let us express ourselves as human, it's less negative. I refuse to be caught into your negative spiral today, Nicholas.
I appreciate that. No, thank you. That's the balance that we really call upon you here. No, I agree with you. There's all manner of chat in terms of this. There's no better time to be a founder, right? So if you're a marketing person looking for a finance person, if you're a finance person looking for a logistics person, in terms of that, no better time for this. You can effectively turn on the tap of that otherwise unavailable intelligence and less paying for bringing someone in, etc. Back to my negative spin though. Like, thank you for that diversion down positive lane. The second thing I want to cite is a study from OpenAI, where around March this year, I want to say, they looked at US college student, university student usage of AI, ChatGPT specifically. So I want to acknowledge comparing 2 different AIs with these 2 studies, right? Claude and ChatGPT. Students are using AI for starting papers and projects, for brainstorming, for ideation. Again, so that higher order stuff. This isn't spell checking or formatting. This is the actual thinking part. Probably no surprises there. I wasn't the best student myself. And it's really easy to blame students in a vacuum, right? But here's where it gets really interesting. And I apologize, this is a 2024 piece, I misspoke there, but late 2024, we got the student voice. 8,000 plus students from across 4 Aussie unis. We're talking Monash, UQ, Deakin, UTS. The students told us exactly how they're using AI. And the numbers are staggering. 83% are using AI in their studies, right? Not surprising. We kind of knew that was coming. But the kicker, 32, only 32% feel they have enough guidance to use it effectively in their studies. Worse, less than a quarter, 23% feel prepared to use AI in their future work. So think about that gap, right? 83% usage, 32% guidance. We've got students flying blind with technology that's fundamentally changing how they learn, how they think. The academic integrity situation, again, going down the dark path. I need you to bring me back somehow, Dale, or at least this is worth nodding to. Academic integrity, 40% of students have used AI when they weren't supposed to, right? But 91% are worried about breaking uni rules. They know they're crossing lines, but they're doing it anyway. So we have a problem, right? This is a massive disconnect, I would argue. I mean, students know the rules, they're worried about breaking them, but nearly half are doing it anyway. So what does that tell us about the pressure that they're under?
AI is in the storm here, but it's not a particularly artificial intelligence issue. So for me, I think empathy is kind of eroded a bit from the education experience, or is eroding from the education experience. And for me, it kind of started around when we started calling students customers.
Yeah. Edu business.
So much of my role is data and looking at data and rather than the actual individual student. So it's metrics and how's this going from this? And that often gets in the way of remembering that the human in the classroom, either upfront teaching or sitting there learning. So I would say that AI is a bit of a lightning rod in what is a perfect storm.
Set me up beautifully as well, because the emotional data in here of these people, I mean, they're not just, as you say, customers, bums on seats. Students are simultaneously 54% optimistic about AI, 56% skeptical. Okay, so they're grateful but worried about it in almost equal measure. Trust, only 27% trust what AI generates, but then almost as many, 24%, never or only sometimes change the output. We will put the summaries, the links to this amazing series of studies in the show notes as well. But just to wrap that up, we have students using AI for that they don't trust for tasks they know they shouldn't, without proper guidance on how to do it well, right? So there's a storm there, as you say. This then connects to some brilliant research from Carnegie Mellon and Microsoft. So they found that AI users often outsource critical thinking, and that increased trust in AI correlates with reduced verification efforts. Okay, so basically, the more we trust these tools, the less we check the work. We're just taking output and running with it. But yeah, there's a glimmer of hope in their research. I'm conscious I am being a bit Debbie Downer. In this, so users with higher self-confidence actually report better critical thinking when using AIs. Right. This leads, though, to a concept that Lee et al., so Carnegie Mellon, Microsoft, they call task stewardship. And I think this might be our way out of this mess. So the call to action here is to think like a director rather than a user. Okay, so if we go back to those students outsourcing brainstorming and writing to AI, at worst, it probably looks like, right, write me 3,000 words, lots of citations, make it sound awesome. Yeah. And if you think about working with AI as a cycle, so input, process, output, feedback, what we're doing is handing over the input, the knowledge, the process, that is the thinking, the planning, the writing, and just waiting there for the output, right? Task stewardship flips this. So instead of lumping everything on the machine, you keep the human on the loop. You think like a director rather than a user. So in practice, maybe you start with AI research. So here I'm thinking Scite, any of the deep research tools, Gemini, ChatGPT, Perplexity. Use those to gather information, but then you, the user, the human in the loop, selects and directs. The student chooses the best of what the machine offers, then passes on to another tool for analysis. So Notebook LM is a good one here. Insert tool to taste, right? But you work with the machine to refine and not just accept whatever it spits out. There may be another AI, right? I mean, get that counter argument. You go from Claude to Gemini or vice versa, Grok, if you're feeling spicy, right? To look for gap analysis, to expand on ideas, but with the human orchestrating the whole process. There's an AI influencer, that's the thing. Put it really well. If you don't approach this intelligently, you are effectively averaging down to the level of the internet, right? And that's exactly what we're seeing. So students taking the path of least resistance, getting average results instead of using tools that elevate their thinking. I think the value isn't in the individual tools anymore. It's how you combine and correct them while preserving that critical thinking. Just to put this in context more broadly, the future of jobs, the future of work, right? The World Economic Forum just identified analytical thinking as a key future skill. At the exact same time, we are training an entire generation to outsource analytical thinking to machines. It's not just about academic integrity, though that's clearly broken with up to 40% of students unknowingly breaking rules. It's about what happens when these students graduate, enter workplaces where critical thinking, problem solving, and independent analysis are the skills that matter most, right? We spoke on a previous episode about the carnage coming for those entry-level white-collar jobs, right? And if at the same time we are training out or not meeting those student needs for those jobs they can get, we're failing students, right? The guidance gap isn't just a number. It represents, again, the humans in this. It's not an edu business. These are thousands of students navigating the most powerful thinking tools in human history without a roadmap. So Dale, again, the negativity, my cup spilleth over here. Because what do we actually do about this? Because painting this picture is all well and good, but we need solutions. What are your thoughts here?
Don't read the World Economic Forum. They're already full of so much optimism. And please hear the snark in my voice there. But let's be honest, I think what we need here is a bit of honesty up front, because the things that students are experiencing in terms of how new these tools are when it comes to AI, they're also being experienced by educators and most people on planet Earth. It's new to absolutely everyone, and the experts don't grow on trees, and if they do, they're getting paid far too much for us to even talk to them. I was working with an academic this week who had introduced agentic AI into her business course in terms of the concepts and how to frame it, and she was incredibly frank throughout the entire course and how she was delivering it, that this was cutting edge and, to be frank, really, really messy. It made the students incredibly uncomfortable, but the journey that they've gone on, that she was getting such good feedback right at the end point around how good this destination was. She's really grounded it in a truly human concept. This particular academic is a behavioralist by trade, and she used the uncanny valley as a brilliant framing to talk about how, in a business context, you can kind of navigate that uncanny valley by going back to these really obvious frameworks. So things like your SWOT analyses, your DVF frameworks, and how might we statements and what that looks like in an AI world, and how to use those and frame the AI to be able to give those back. It's a little bit of use what you know to frame how we're going to get there, and accept that we're all on this journey together.
Yeah, I love it. I think the bottom line is that the AI isn't going anywhere. It is not inevitable in exactly the form it will take, but it will be ubiquitous in the future. And that there's an important nuance there. But then at the same time, human critical thinking should be here to stay as well, right? And the question is whether we're going to teach students to work with these tools while preserving that which makes them uniquely human. We're going to accidentally train a generation that can't think for themselves. I mean, again, for myself, I know which future I'm voting for. So,
well, listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please leave us a review, share around within your network, and most of all, hit subscribe with a little bell item if you're watching on YouTube and whatever platform you are at. We are on all your favorite podcast platforms, and those who would love to see our faces, you can also find us on YouTube. We'd love to tell you what's on next week's episode, but it's a world that moves way too fast, so you'll just have to tune in. Until then, stay curious, stay intelligent, and stay the human in the loop.